Hello, everybody. I don't really know how to start this video, so I'm just gonna get into it and tell you about the problem I think I solved. Well, it's a workaround. So this issue keeps coming up. This allow private comments um, for me and my team, or I should say teams, because I've worked on a couple of teams who use Asana over the past 5 years or so. And one of the drawbacks is that it doesn't have a private comment or internal comments feature. And so, if you found this video, you're probably well familiar with the issue. You've probably gone to the forums, and this is one of the first Google search results, and it explains the issue perfectly. So this project manager does bug tracking for client projects, and they have private projects, and then they have client-facing projects. And what they would like to do is add a private comment that only the assigned person can see. Um, and then it says it would be a comment from me to the developer that the client would not see. And then they say they use Jira for a different client and it has a feature which works great. And that's the thing I see the most brought up in comparison is that Jira does have that ability. But man, there are other platforms that have that feature. Live chat software where you start a ticket and you can tag internally some other team member. They can help you, and then you can just instead of showing them instead of showing the guest or the client all the back and forth, all they see is the very last and final answer that they need to see. Whatever they only see what's relevant to them, which is the important thing here. And I've really been annoyed by this because I have the same issue. So I have I'm going to explain to you the sort of scenario that I have, and then hopefully it's something that you can adapt. I'm going to show you how to do this as well. I think it's pretty flexible. Um, so let me show you some screenshots here. All right, here we go. I'm in my presentation here, and you are going to have to bear with me. So what I've done is I've taken screenshots of the solution, and I've kind of blocked out things for privacy issues. I just can't show you everything, so I figured the safest way to do this is to just take screenshots of the process. You see I have these dots, so we're going to go through each dot. I'm going to explain to you everything, and by the end of this, you should be able to do this. It took me 5 minutes. It took like an hour of testing, making sure that everything was working the way I needed it to, but I'll give you my scenario, and you make your own decision and adapt this however you need to. So one of the first things I should point out here is the actual internal note itself. So in our use case, what we want is the ability to keep track of a change log. So this is a creative agency. We are creating pieces of content, and on a certain piece of content, we might need to keep a log of of what the editor did, and then we'll have a quality control process and we'll give feedback to the editor. And then at some point, the editor will deliver something else, and we have no further internal feedback for them. So now the task can go and be presented to a client. The client may see the final result and have additional feedback on that. But when we do that, when we present it to the client, we don't want them to see all the back and forth that we've done internally. So we prefer to show them a clean result. And so what we are doing right now, as of yesterday, what we were doing is creating a duplicate task on a client-facing project. We'll paste in the link to the latest version of the deliverable, and then we wait for the client's feedback. If they have client feedback, then we come back to the internal task and we provide the editor with that feedback. And it's all in an effort to keep things very clean on the client side and very professional. So that is all well and good, but we do end up with issues where if a client approves something, then we have certain rules that push that task over to the social media manager for scheduling, except that the social media manager has a process for quality check as well. So sometimes that quality check process will mean that the task has to go back to the editor for additional changes. So now the editor ends up with two different tasks. So how do we solve that? Well, we have a project manager, and the project manager is kind of in charge of orchestrating the whole thing. But you can see how it gets a little bit messy. In trying to keep things clean for the client, it gets messy for our team, and that can lead to a different just miscommunication in what needs to be done next when there are two of the same. There's a duplicate task, and they're both kind of referring to the same deliverable. That's not good. So that's why we want the internal note, an internal note process, because then you could just keep one task, and that task from start to end goes through the entire content production pipeline. It can travel through the internal side. It can pop over to the client-facing side, and then back to the internal, and the whole time it's just one task. That would keep everything so much cleaner for everybody. Now, the way that I've figured out to do that is by creating an internal note field, and it sounds deceptively simple, but it wasn't until just something clicked today, and I just realized, well, what do we want to do here? We want to deny access to this field to guests and clients, and we only want the internal team to have access to it. So, I went about creating a field in a sample project and testing out, and it ended up working just fine. So I'm going to show you the rest of the setup that we have here. So here's the internal note field. You can see that this task, and this isn't so clean, but it's automated, so it's not too bad. You can see that the task is part of 3 projects. Bridge helps us keep track of the overall status of batches of deliverable over the course of the month. So it's not really going to affect us here in this sense, but you just need to know what it is, because later on I'm going to reference the section or the automation that puts the task into the bridge and to the comms. And this comms project, that is what holds nothing else but the internal note field, and that allows us to control the access to this note. So the project that we are looking at here is this internal client project. So that's why it's all you see is internal. This whole time we're just going to be dealing with this one client project. So I've already completed this task out, and that's why it's moved to the completed field. But I'll show you a little bit more about those a little bit later on. So I believe that is everything here. So, and then this is the title of the task. Just keep a note of that as I bounce around to the different sections that we do for this. All right, let's move on. So the thing that I thought initially when I created this and tested it out, I did not get an activity record for it. I don't know what it was. Maybe I just did it too fast after creating the task. But what happened is, after I started adding some collaborators, and also after 10 minutes had passed, we asked different collaborators to add to the internal note, and then we were able to see their activity log. So you can see here, this collaborator changed the internal note, and there's a timestamp. So the activity log works just the same, and that's something that we thought we were going to lose, because there's a drawback to doing this, which I don't know if I mentioned at the outset, but this internal note is just text. You can't tag collaborators on there, but what you can do is tag them in the comments and ask them to see the internal note, or just tag them, and or depending on your workflow, just assign the task to them and update whatever status for your content pipeline or whatever pipeline you're using, and that should be a note to them to go look at the internal. It's a queue for them to go look at the internal note. So that is up to you to kind of adapt to your process, but that's the way we're doing it. Is we're just going to tag each other, change the assignee, update the field status, and that will be the queue for the new assignee to go look at the internal note. So this is something beautiful that we thought we were going to lose at first. We thought, okay, we can have internal note privacy now, but we lose activity. And that was a real big bummer until we found out that that is not the case. You do, in fact, retain activity. And this activity is only visible to the people that you give access to. So it sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but all of these changes to the internal note field, remember that the internal note is not a part of this client project. The internal note is part of what I called the comms project, and you can call it whatever you want for you, but it's part of the comms project. And if someone is not part of the comms project, they can't see comms project updates, and everything that goes into that little internal note is not visible to guests and clients or anyone you don't want. So let's say if you wanted to have admin comments, you could create an admin comms project and only add your admins to that project. Of course, then you'll end up with two different fields, team note and admin note if you want, but you could very well do that with this process. All right, now we're in the we're in the comms project, and you can see that there is nothing in here at all except this internal note field. So I created a blank project, hit the little plus sign to create a text field. I named the field title internal note, and then just added this use case description. And it's as simple as that. That's all you need to do. If you want, you could do a little bit more. For example, I made a rule immediately after that for any items that are complete will be moved from active to complete. And that's just to keep things organized. But you don't even have to do that because you shouldn't be in here too much. So you could just create a filter to hide any incomplete items, or hide any completed items, and only see the incomplete. But anyways, I wanted to make that rule because that's just a rule that we already have for all other projects. What this does is when you are in the client, this one here, when you are in the client project, when that task moves through the content pipeline and ends up being completed at the very end, it is marked completed, and then it is also moved to the complete section here in the comms project. All right. The other thing that I wanted to show you about this comms project is that depending on the project that you're focused on is the order of the fields that you see. I'm probably not saying that right, but the internal note comes up at the top because we are currently in the comms project. So if you have a really big note, it's going to push all of these other statuses out of the way, and you'll have to scroll a bit to get to those. And if those statuses or those fields are important to you, then that may be annoying. But I just want to make a note that only happens, the internal note only shows up when you are focused in the comms. So you'll be able to, the note will be a little bit further down in most cases. And here we'll see the example of that. So now I've switched back to the client project, the internal client project. And you can see that the internal note field has now pushed down after the fields that belong to this project. So that's kind of how it works. If you see that moving around, now you know why. And then I think this is one of the last things I want to cover. So our content workflow, I want to say, is pretty thorough. And for that reason, it bounces back and forth between different members, different teams. Then it goes to the client, everything I've said before already. And in order to make things a little bit easier, what we have is, you can see our process here. We create ideas and we put them in this ideas being crafted section. When they are ready, they're assigned to the project manager, who reviews the ideas and decides, yep, these are all, this batch is good to present to the client. So what they do is the project manager will grab those ideas, drag them to this add to bridge and comms section that will trigger an automation, and that automation adds the tasks to the bridge and the comms projects. And this bridge thing is just a project, is what I mentioned earlier, but this little section is what's going to make this comms thing work. So the internal note won't be added until until the task is added to the comms project. And you don't have to make this separate section. You can make a rule where any task that is created, or so I should say, every task that is created in this project will automatically get added to the comms project. That is definitely up to you how you want to manage that workflow. The trick is that the internal note comes from being a part of the comms project. So at some point or another, you have to add the task to the comms project, and you could do that manually just by clicking. I don't know if I'll have a screenshot of it here, but yeah, right here, projects, and then it says add to projects. You can click that and manually add tasks to the comms project every time, but that's a little bit annoying, so we went ahead and made an automation. That is about everything that you need to know for this. I really hope it helps everybody. I've been seeing this issue on those forums for years. People are still asking for it. I would much rather have a Jira style internal comment functionality in Asana, but this is what we have to work with. And please let me know in the comments if this works for you. Please let me know if you see any drawbacks. And let me know if you have any questions about your use cases. I love thinking about these kinds of problems. And if I can help you out, I'll definitely try and take some minutes out of my day to do that for you. So cheers, and thank you for watching.